Hello, everybody. This is Frank with Iron Age News. It's Tuesday, February 17th, 11:30 a.m. And if you hear chainsaws and shit in the background, I can't help you. This area is a constant construction site anymore. And it's a very disgusting and corrosive form of capitalism that we practice in this town. But that's not what we're talking about today. This was a question by a viewer slash reader, and we are going to get into it real quick. It's very easy to understand. And the question was basically, what if the Epstein files have such an amount of fallout that it takes out certain members of Congress or the Senate? I guess because they have been reading, various people's names, and some people have obvious ties to the sex party that never stopped in the Bahamas. So, anyway, here's what occurs. So, what happens if a major scandal reaches the very core of American political power? A criminal investigation, any criminal investigation, suddenly implicated members of Congress because we also have issues going on with wide scale corruption in the state of Minnesota, in the state of Maine, California, and a few other places. And this will also apply to the Congress and Senate that's in the federal government from there. Say, would the government collapse? Which must have been part of the question. Would Washington shut down? Do they have to have a special election? Blah, blah, blah. Would the Constitution even allow prosecutions of sitting lawmakers? That's an interesting one, too. So, we're going to step back from the rumor and speculation and the politics to examine a serious institutional question. What would actually happen if a major legal fallout, such as the Epstein case, resulted in multiple members of Congress facing indictment or prison? So this is not going to be claims, accusations, or predictions. This is how the U.S. system is designed to handle corruption at the highest levels. Before I go any further, I will mention to any of you who are doing any research using most of the chat systems, but more especially ChatGPT and any of its versions, if you don't know what it is that you're asking them to find, or you don't have a good idea, but you just need like particular, you know, dates and things of that nature, it's tending to lie a lot. It doesn't lie, but it's lying a lot for our purposes on anything that is critical of the Democratic Party or anything that the Democratic Party or the socialist influences in the United States have been involved in. You will see it says no to almost everything, or it says I can only do unbiased things, which is not true because if you turned around and asked it to smash up Donald Trump and shit like that, it has no problem doing it. So don't put all your faith into those services. Use them as you would an assistant or a library aide or something like that. But even so, know what it is that you wanted to find, roughly before you go and publish, because you will be publishing disinformation yourself, even though it may not look like it, or you will stop researching an article yourself because you'll think there's nothing there, but it was really there. So just so we're aware of that, that's my community service thing for you guys. So what you're going to find out is the Constitution has already planned for these kind of scenarios. All right. The founders of the United States did not assume, obviously, government officials would always behave well. They assumed the opposite. The Constitution was designed around one core idea: power must be restrained because human beings are flawed. That means the system includes mechanisms to handle criminal behavior by elected officials, even members of Congress. The key principle is separation of authority. Courts would handle criminal punishment. Congress controls its own membership. The separation protects both justice and political stability. So, what happens if a member of Congress is indicted by a criminal case, such as I'm a child molester, or I hang out with a lot of child molesters and do a lot of drugs while not molesting children, but I'm molesting children? Uh, there's something many Americans don't realize about that. Because indictment does not remove a member of Congress from office. The indictment itself doesn't do it. You can still sit for office. And if you're a total egomaniac, like a number of them are, they are not going to leave until you pry them out like a clam. A sitting senator or representative can be investigated, can be charged with a crime, can be arrested, can stand trial, and still remain in office. The Constitution gives each chamber, the House and the Senate, the power to decide whether to remove its own members. So courts can punish a crime. Congress gets to decide membership. And this will be some stuff that you'll ask me that why, and I'll explain it. So if multiple members were indicted, I'm gonna stick with the Epstein thing for pedophilia, for being a spy for the Israelis or whoever supposedly runs them, right? Congress would decide whether to investigate them internally, strip their committee assignments, censure them, or expel them. But expulsion requires a two-thirds vote. It's a very high bar, okay? So historically, most members resign under pressure before that happens. But we are in a new era where it is not about the government, it is about overthrowing the government to perform a new government, a new socialist way of doing things. So don't actually think about when people tell you historically anything. Oh, by the way, the chat systems do a lot of this now too, you'll find out. And that's not what you asked. You asked today. So a member of Congress can actually continue serving while on trial. They can vote, they can attend hearings, they can run for reelection. There is no automatic suspension rule. And this has come up in the past. I can't remember who it was, but this has happened before. And Menendez, Gold Bar Menendez, right? And why? Because forcing removal simply based on accusation can be abused for political purposes. The system prioritizes due process. Political pressure, not legal mandate, usually determines whether they step aside. So when you guys all think you're going to get the president to step down or a Hegseth or all these guys, even them, right? You see what I'm talking about? So the socialists know these things. They just like to stir the pot. However, for real cases of criminality, there's going to be the same issue there. So this is where two separate processes take place at the conviction point. Now you've been convicted. We know you're a pedophile or a spy or whatever you are. This is where two separate processes are going to take place. Okay, first, the criminal justice system. The courts will sentence a member to whatever the amount of time is. There is no immunity for personal crimes, regardless of what they may think. No immunity for personal crimes. Remember Chappaquiddick? That was Ted Kennedy when he had that girl drown in his car, kind of. Whatever that whole story was, he was looking at a real criminal charge. Secondly, Congress itself decides whether that person keeps their seat, believe it or not. You can expel the member, they could pressure resignation, or theoretically, they could allow you to remain in office. So you could catch a year or two. Let's say they did a sweetheart and they're going to catch a year or two on this. It is legally possible, though extremely unlikely in the old days, not today, for someone to technically hold office while incarcerated. The Constitution leaves removal to Congress, not the courts. All right. So there's your little moment of outrage for not catching these child molesters. If multiple members leave office, the system has a built-in replacement procedure. For the House of Representatives, special elections will fill the vacancy. For the Senate, the governor of that state will appoint temporary replacements until elections occur. So hopefully, if you're going to get rid of them and you want to hold your state, you want to get rid of them the first year of their Senate term so they have the rest of the time to be senator before they have to run. The government will continue to function. There is no constitutional crisis. The system assumes that there's going to be turnover. So, once again, the question was, could large scale prosecutions disrupt the government? Even if many members face prosecution at once, as any number, I think 15 to 20 that I can think of off the top of my head, could have been prosecuted for being agents of Chinese influence in the United States and in the Congress. The system is designed to remain stable. Congress has operated through corruption, mass resignations, death, war, and political upheaval. If you recall, the Civil War, half the people were missing, right? The Constitution includes quorum rules and replacement mechanisms to keep the government running. Institutional continuity was a core design priority. These days, when you hear somebody saying like Thune or Mitch McConnell about the rules, they use the rules as a weapon. They were originally put together as a design to be a fail-safe mechanism to stop the whole thing from falling apart if, the Teapot Dome scandal went or something, right? The real impact would be political and it would not be constitutional. The biggest consequence of a major scandal involving lawmakers would likely be political. You have the public trust shaken, which it's already, public trust is at a low point. Certain parties could lose control of the seats in the case of Democrats because in the case of Congress because it's elections, or even in the Senate if the governor is maybe it's a new governor and he's a one party and the other guy's another party, he still gets to make that replacement. So those elections could reshape the power. Ethics reforms could follow, but probably won't because nobody ever reforms the ethics. If you recall, they used to have, I think they still have a bank in the Congress. Everybody was overdrawn. Everybody used to bounce checks. Some of the worst people in the world financially were congressmen. But the structure of the government itself would remain intact because the system was designed that well. The system is designed that well that right now, while we are fighting a socialist insurgency in the streets of the United States and in the courtrooms and in the Congress of the United States by bad actors, foreign and domestic, against a, an elected official, we still haven't fallen completely apart. And we are still in better shape than Germany and France and England. So, why the system works this way, for those of you who asked the question, the American constitutional system reflects a fundamental belief: accountability must exist, even for the powerful. Granted, that was the thing, and we feel a little bit jaded about it at this point, but at the same time, government must continue functioning during crisis. That balance explains why indictment does not equal removal. And honestly, in this day and age with lawfare, if they thought they could have got away with it, they would have indicted every Republican if they thought that would have gotten him out of chair, right? Why the courts are punishing the crime, why Congress controls its membership, and voters ultimately decide representation. So, really, it comes down to the American voter in the future. And the same thing that I've said here in the state of Florida in the upcoming elections. If you have quality candidates, real quality candidates, meaning they know what they're doing and they're not just some socialist piece of garbage, or they're not some rhino, or they're not something else of that nature, vote for them, right? Don't believe party politics as it exists today. There is nothing to persuade you to join. If you are a Democrat and have left the Democrats because of their embracing of socialism, there is no reason for you to automatically become a Republican. Vice versa, right? If you are a Mitch McConnell rhino piece of garbage neocon, and you are not happy with the Trump policies for whatever reason, because he's Hitler, there's no reason for you to go and join the Democratic Party. Stay independent, vote for who you would like to vote for, and maybe if you have enough pull by being independents and being able to swing elections, more quality candidates will appear for you to vote for. That is too much to ask for, but that is what we ask for here in the United States. So if you found any of this useful, subscribe, blah, blah, blah. You won't do it anyway. And we are also on our own site, South Florida Conservatives. Who am I? SouthFloridaConservatives.com and on Substack. Both of those have more reports on them because sometimes I just don't have the time to go read this stuff for everybody's joy and knowledge. So that being said, it's Tuesday. Have a great day, and I will talk to you later on. Goodbye.